Let it be known that the true light shines in every woman and man that cometh into the world. The true light that shineth in the darkness, but the darkness comprehendeth it not. Let us all within earshot of this true light fellowship bear witness to the true light within, that we may, like the real and living Messiah, Yahshua Christ, whom many know today as Jesus Christ, pick up and bear our own cross, that we may be worthy of the Messiah by way of the Christ or Christ consciousness, known also as the first resurrection. And as we are now living in these times, let us all rise from our sleep and slumber and do the works of the Most High Heavenly One, this day and every day, as we say, Amun, Amun, Amun.
Well, Namaste again, and welcome to another Sunday service here at the Holy Qubtic Church. My name is Pastor Cleveland Eneas III, also known as Anku Sarah, and we're located in Nassau, Bahamas, in historic Bain town on Meadow Street. For those of you in our listening audience or congregation, and we welcome you to our service this morning or this afternoon, whenever you're reading it. It's morning for us. Whenever you're listening to it, this morning for us. And so, we, as the Holy Qubtic Church, want to invite you to come down here any Sunday at 9 a.m. or Wednesday at 7 p.m., whereby we have our True Light Fellowship and Bible Study, which really is question and answer time. Okay, where you have an opportunity to question the scriptures, question us, question whatever it is that you see fit to question. But we in this church, we question. We ask, we seek, and we knock. And so today, we jump into a topic that's pretty volatile right now. I got home later than I expected yesterday, only to turn on the television and hear the verdict of the George Zimmerman, Trayvon Martin case. And so I watched for a while, seeing that George Zimmerman had been acquitted of all the charges that were being brought against him, and I wasn't in shock. Sadly enough, I was not in shock. I did, for some reason, feel that the justice system of the United States, that there was still a thread of dignity left in it, based on the fact that the world was watching. But apparently, they just really don't have any shame whatsoever. As a matter of fact, as I watched the trial, or the verdict rather, I said to myself, Lady Justice surely is a Seventh-day Adventist, but she does not work on Saturdays. She was surely not on the job yesterday when that verdict was being given. And no disrespect to the Seventh-day Adventists out there, but I had to make a point that justice really wasn't served. And so today, I really wanted to touch on a perpetual crime that has been carried out against the Nubian Melanite people of the world, okay? Insofar as we as a people have perpetually had to deal with the crime of identity theft. Identity theft, which just happens to be the name or the title of our newest publication, the Holy Qubtic Church, which we do have available for those who are interested. But I entitled today's sermon, Self-Defense, Standing Our Ground Against Identity Theft. Self-defense, standing our ground against identity theft. And obviously, there are not undertones, but overtones of the recent case that's still fresh in everybody's mind. And this whole idea of George Zimmerman having the right to stand his ground and kill an innocent young man, never mind if he was black, white, or Chinese, but an innocent young man who happened to be black. Okay? So we first understand that a young innocent man is dead, but then we can't ignore the fact that it's a black young man. Okay? Especially when we look at the rate, the alarming rate at which young black men are dying and going to prison and being marginalized by the quote-unquote system in America as well as in the Bahamas. So some people will say that we are focusing on an issue that is not our issue. That's in America. We need to focus on issues at home, forgetting how many Bahamians live in Florida, forgetting how many Bahamians go to school in Florida, forgetting that it could have been them or their child or their cousin or one of their family members in Florida stretched out on that lawn. So we are not far-fetched in looking in our neighbor's backyard when it comes to speaking on our well-being as a nation and as a church, and most importantly as a people. And so there's a lot that we're going to touch on today, and I'm going to be, as always, moving through the scriptures, because what I want us to appreciate is we as a people, as Nubian Melaninites, okay, and let me just make it clear, I cannot speak on any other people. I'm a Nubian Melanonite, a so-called black man. So God made me a black man because he wants me to relate and speak to black people. Does it mean that the message is only for black people, or I can only in any or every instance only talk to black people? No. But my perspective is that of a black man. Same kind of black man that was laying out on that lawn after George Zimmerman exercised his stand your ground self-defense tactics that the court and the jury agreed with. And so how does this whole situation relate to us as the people around the world? Because we're all feeling the pain of Trayvon Martin and his family. We all feel the pain of Marco Archer. We all feel the pain of the grandmother who was recently killed. A 70-year-old woman in her house, not bothering anybody, and she's killed. And we can go on and on and on. We feel the pain. It's one blood. That's what it means, one blood. No matter how far away we are from each other, no matter what passport they put in our hands, we feel each other's pain. And we know injustice when we see it. And so the first place I want to look at is in the book of Genesis, chapter 1, a verse that we have read many, many times, but I don't think we could ever read it enough. Chapter 1, verse 26. Because this establishes a reference point. Okay? This establishes who we as a people look like and act like originally. In Genesis 1:26 says, and God said, let us make man in our image and after our likeness, and let them have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the fowl of the air, and over the cattle, and over all the earth, and over every creeping thing that creepeth upon the earth. And as we know, this is the King James translation of a story that originally takes place in Africa. This is an African book, Helios Biblos, alright, something that we've discussed many times. And so this God, or Nataru Elohim, is saying in this instance that the progeny, or those that are being created, are to be created in a specific image and in a specific likeness. And being that our Christian brothers and sisters view this as the beginning of humanity, then we should at least all be able to agree that the original blueprint is that of God. Okay? Is that of God, or Nataru Elohim. And if that is the case, then we have to question now what has become of the image of God and the likeness of God, and how it relates to us as a people. Because unfortunately for us, Nubian, Melanite, so-called black people, we are in a predicament whereby we've been taught, many of us anyway, have been taught most of our lives, that we are Gentiles. And we should seek to be converted to Christianity here in the West, or to a lot of parts throughout Africa and the Middle East. Our brothers and sisters are being converted to Islam. Some are being converted to Judaism. But none of them are in a predicament, or in a position rather, to actually control their salvation. You see, it's not good enough to just get on the bus. You should have your own bus, and you should be driving it, and you should know where you want to go. Because at the end of the day, this statement, let us make man in our image and after our likeness, has been repeated many times. Because amongst all people, there is a hierarchy. Amongst all people, there is a hierarchy. And so, we look now into the original books of the Bible, because we see where this dynamic comes from. See, it's very blasphemous for anybody to suggest that we should be colorblind. It's very blasphemous for anybody to suggest that we should be colorblind, as in to say that is a means to progress in our society or in our community. Utter nonsense. For one, we know God ain't colorblind, because God made the black, the white, the Chinese, the Indian, and you go down the line. So, right off the top, when you're saying that we're supposed to be a colorblind society, you're saying you're going against God. Because there had to be a reason why all of these different people, or variations of people, were created and put together on one planet to breathe the same air, to feel the same sun and moon and waters and nature. We all are a part of nature, but in a specific way. We're all a part of nature, but in a specific way. The problem comes in, before we jump into the original books, the problem comes in the book of Genesis, where in the Greco-Romans get a hold of this ancient text, that is, the original books of the Bible, going back to Genesis 1 and 26, after it speaks of God making man in their image and likeness, and I say there because the word God is plural, that's Elohim. Yod Mim represents a plural word in the Hebrew, and so these were men and women. Nature does not produce without having two energies, a male and female energy. Because if these were only men, then all of the women would have to question where they came from. You understand? And for some reason, that's what Christianity has become. Okay, a single father, his son, and his imaginary friend called the Holy Ghost. And the mother is nowhere to be seen. So we have an absentee mother, a father who wants nothing to do with his son, and his imaginary friend called the Holy Ghost. That's what it's been made into. You may not like how that sounds, but let's get back to reality, because that's foolishness. You understand? And so what these men lovers did was they moved women out, and they also moved God out of the picture. And when you look in Genesis chapter 1, after they talk about the image and likeness of God, it says, and let them have dominion over the fish of the sea and over the fowl of the air, etc., etc. And that's the mentality of the God or the people that interfered with the text, the original text or book of the Most High Heavenly One unnarrated. They feel as if they have dominion over everything. They don't work with nature. They work over nature. They don't work with people. They work over people. As if they see you as a person. Because they built their wealth off of the fact that they didn't see you as a human. You are a beast of burden. 3/5 of a human. You understand? That's where our economy is coming out of. This is what Karl Marx, as we talked about last week, primitive accumulation of wealth, slavery. You understand? And so when you're dealing with a people who feel as if they have the right to dominate, then they begin to dominate on every level, including the level of identity theft. And they feel as if you're not going to utilize the covenants that have been made between you and the Most High. We're going to slide in there and pretend to be you, and then we will receive the blessings of the covenant. Okay? Now only the devil could do that, just so you know. So we talking about the devil, and we ain't talking about no spooks. You understand? The devil don't come in one race, so we ain't playing that game. You understand? But we talking about the devil walking amongst us and actually telling the world that he's something that he's not. Okay? So in the original books of the Bible, reading out of the book of Ma'at, book number 10, the book of divine principles of Ma'at, which is universal order and the balancement of deeds. We are on page 196 and we read from verse 33, and it reads, O humanity, most surely have we left on tar earth the angelic records concerning sexuality, as taught by the priestesses and priests of the Holy Qubtic Church, that do protect the teachings of the Min priesthood. So their angelic records, there's nothing that the angelic records don't touch on, including natural sexual union, sexual intercourse. Alright, now it's protected by the Min priesthood. Natara Elohim, this is the word that they watered down to be God. Alright, which means the all-inclusive and complete aspects, principles, attributes, chemicals, elements, guardians, and nurturing forces, has created you all into tribes and families in order that tar earth be filled with variations of your species, which help to maintain its balancement. So let's read that again. Nataru Elohim, okay, who we call God in the King James Version, created everyone into tribes and families in order that Tar Earth, this planet, be filled with variations of your species, so-called human beings, which help to maintain its balancement. So we have a purpose in helping the planet keep and maintain its balancement. This is why we were created the way we were created, to do the things we're supposed to do with each other so that we maintain a balancement. That balancement is unfortunately being ignored. And so the earth is now fighting back. Nature is fighting back. It says, thus defile not the balancement by mixing your seeds. Defile not the balancement by mixing your seeds, as the result is and will continue to be detrimental towards the planet's progression. Instead, take your lead from the rest of nature, wherein bees and wasps don't violate this divine principle. Lions and tigers don't violate this divine principle. Whales and sharks don't violate this divine principle. Nor do parrots and hawks violate this divine principle, as they all instinctively know how important keeping nature balanced is towards nature's survival. So within nature, you will not find different species crossing the lines that nature have drawn for them. Now, some people would say, well, this is racism. I don't care. Personally, I don't. Because at the end of the day, we must speak the truth. So let's look in the Bible then. Go to Genesis chapter 24. You know, that may sound blunt or harsh to some people, but it wasn't harsher than that verdict yesterday. You understand? So that's the energy I came in the other day with. It's based on the fact that we want to know why we still getting verdicts like this in 2013. This is why. You crossing boundaries that you shouldn't have crossed. Okay? So Genesis chapter 24 I'll read from verse 1 to 3. And Abraham was old and well stricken in age, and the Lord had blessed Abraham in all things. And Abraham said unto his eldest servant of his house, that ruled over all that he had, put, I pray thee, thy hand under my thigh. So, when you were making a covenant or a promise, this was the practice that took place. You appreciate it a bit more when we look at it in the language. And I will make thee swear by the Lord, the God of heaven and the God of earth, that thou shalt not take a wife unto my son of the daughters of the Canaanites, among whom I dwell. Now that's deep. Abraham living with them, but he don't want his children mixing with them. Now, the Canaanites, remember Canaan is the fourth son of Ham that was cursed, a servant of servants was he supposed to be. And then in Leviticus 13 and 14, it further goes on to speak about the leprosy that the Canaanites received. Even scientifically, when you look at leprosy, it's called Hansen's disease. As in to say Ham's son's disease. Okay, so this ain't racism. This reality. You understand? This ain't racism. It's reality. So Abraham is saying, I don't want my sons mixing with the Canaanites. Okay? So if you're calling me a racist, we in good company. Abraham is a racist too. Right? Let's jump now into, I want to show you a couple of places so you don't think we just pulling stuff out of the sky. Because you want to live in this colorblind world. There wasn't nothing colorblind about the jury, the defense, or the prosecution. Nobody there looked like Trayvon Martin. Not a soul. Not one of them. Right? Exodus 34 and 16. Actually, before we go to Exodus, hold on. Just go to Genesis 28 first. So we were in Genesis 24. Go to Genesis 28 before we go to Exodus. So Abraham had children, right? What Abraham's son was named? Isaac, right? Okay. So now we have Isaac now, who's Jacob's daddy. Genesis 28, verse 1. And Isaac called Jacob and blessed him, and charged him and said unto him, Thou shalt not take a wife of the daughters of Canaan. Again, we keep into this theme now. Okay, my daddy didn't want that for me. I don't want this for you. Yeah? Alright. Amun. Go to Exodus now. See, because those with ears to hear will follow suit. And those who just want to live life the way they want to, nothing you can do with them anyway, so you don't hurt your head. Exodus 34 and 16. And as we always say, go and read all the chapter when you get opportunity. We just jump into verses for the sake of time. And thou take of their daughters unto thy sons, and their daughters go a whoring after their gods, and make thy sons go a whoring after their gods. So basically, this is the reason why in Exodus it is saying that they shouldn't mix with these Canaanites. I won't be clear. So let's look. Go Exodus 34. Let's start at verse 10. I won't read a little bit more than just that verse, because it won't be clear. Okay? Go back to verse 10. Exodus 34, verse 10. And he said, Behold, I make a covenant before all thy people. I will do marvels, such as have not been done in all the earth, nor in any nation. And all the people among which thou art shall see the work of the Lord, for it is a terrible thing that I will do with thee. Observe thou that which I command thee this day. Behold, I drive out before thee the Amorite, the Canaanite, and the Hittite, and the Perizzite, and the Hivite, and the Jebusite. These are the tribes of Canaan that are being driven out. Take heed to thyself, lest thou make a covenant with the inhabitants of the land whither thou goest, lest it be for a snare in the midst of thee. They're being sent to a land that was originally theirs, but that had been inhabited by the Canaanites. Okay? So the identity theft had already taken place. They took the land. See, stand your ground. See? This is real. This is real. Stand your ground. That's what Israel doing now in the Middle East. They stand in their ground. You understand? And they got permission by their courts and their God to stand their ground, which is someone else's ground. See what's going on? Okay then. Verse 12. Take heed to thyself, lest thou make a covenant with the inhabitants of the land whither thou goest, lest it be for a snare in the midst of thee. But ye shall destroy their altars. This is what they're telling them to do now. Destroy their altars and break their images and cut down their groves. This is why we are the Qubtic church of the black Messiah. Not because we hate someone else, but this was a commandment. If you're going to stand up and see yourself in divinity, you can't be standing up under the image and likeness of God in someone else's image. Okay, these are icons. In the Greek, the word image is icon. The word icon is a window to heaven. And where is heaven? It's within you. So you can't get to heaven within you unless God look like you. So it's okay for the white Jesus and the white God to be in the white church. They deserve that. They are God's children. But don't we all deserve that? And this is what we're talking about today. Verse 14, for thou shalt worship no other God, for the Lord, whose name is jealous, is a jealous God. Some people argue that that word jealous should be zealous. We're not going there today. But the point that's being made is that you are made in a specific image and likeness, which should have made it very easy for you to figure out who your God is and what it's supposed to look like. It should be no mystery if you were made in the image and after the likeness of God. Well, you want to know what God look like? Look in the mirror. Simple, man. God is not a God of confusion. Come on now. And then it goes on in verse 15 to say, lest thou make a covenant with the inhabitants of the land, and they go a-whoring after their gods, and do sacrifice unto their gods. And one call thee, and thou eat of his sacrifice. So this is what it's talking about. We whoring after other people's gods. And then we don't know, when justice don't work for us, we upset. We confused. Oh, let's march. Some say let's riot. Some say let's don't riot. We say, find yourself. Get yourself in order. Defend who you are. You can't defend yourself if you don't know who you are. You can't stand your ground if you don't know where your ground is. Huh? Your identity has been stolen. You are the children of the Most High Heavenly One. You are the chosen of unmade race. Those that rule the G7 nations and those others that we talked about last week, they are the chosen of Zeus. Hence, they worship Jazus, or Jupiter and Zeus. This is not racism. This is reality. This is what we need if we're going to make it in the New World Order. Because the order has been established. Because the lady who was in Florida fending for her life against her abusive husband, she didn't even shoot him. She shot into the air. 20 years. 20 years. She couldn't stand her ground because it wasn't her ground. You see what's going on? Wasn't her ground. Get in your place, Negro. And so we move now into Deuteronomy chapter 7. So I want to make it clear. We ain't pulling stuff out of the sky. We're pulling out the scriptures. Your identity has been stolen. And been stolen for a long time now. But God is telling you how to get it back. Deuteronomy chapter 7. We start at verse 1. When the Lord thy God shall bring thee into the land whither thou goest to possess it, and hath cast out many nations before thee, the Hittites, the Girgashites, the Amorites, the Canaanites, the Perizzites, the Hivites, and the Jebusites, 7 nations greater and mightier than thou, and when the Lord thy God shall deliver them before thee, thou shalt smite them and utterly destroy them. Thou shalt make no covenant with them, nor show mercy unto them. Is this saying go beat the white people? No, it's not. Don't get the wrong idea. When it's saying that you shall smite them and utterly destroy them, it means if you focus on building your own economy and your own communities and getting your family in order, then they can't live off of you anymore. If it destroys them, so be it. But your intention in gaining your identity is not to destroy anybody, but it's to build yourself. You see? Verse 3 says, neither shalt thou make marriages with them. Here we go again. Thy daughter thou shalt not give unto his son, nor his daughter shalt thou take unto thy son, for they will turn away thy son from following me, that they may serve other gods. So will the anger of the Lord be kindled against you, and destroy thee suddenly. Okay? You want to know why the world is in the state that it's in right now? We're not paying attention. We're not paying attention to the Most High Heavenly One, to the guardian angelic hosts, to the seers, to the prophets. Those that left the word plain as day. As we read it, everybody can nod their head and see, oh wow, it is there. It is there. We're not supposed to be mixing our seed. You know, we're destroying the bonds of the planet. Let's look now in Ezra chapter 9. And it's interesting because the book Ezra really and truly, if you move the first two letters around, Zerah. The word Zerah is the word seed in the Hebrew.
Chapter 9.
Chapter 9, first two verses. And this is what they have it titled, Intermarriage with Pagans. That's what they titled it. Now when these things were done, the princes came to me saying, the people of Israel and the priests and the Levites have not separated themselves. So they didn't keep these laws. These commandments are not mixing their seed. They have not separated themselves from the people of the lands, doing according to their abominations, even of the Canaanites, the Hittites, the Perizzites, the Jebusites, the Ammonites, the Moabites, the Egyptians, and the Amorites. So these Egyptians are the Hyksos. This is not you. You're not Egyptian, you're Tamaranian. Egyptian, Aegyptos, is a Greek word that means burnt faces. Our faces don't burn. We actually come out the womb like this. Verse 2, for they have taken of their daughters for themselves and for their sons, so that the holy seed have mingled themselves with the people of those lands. Yea, the hand of the princes and rulers hath been chief in the trespass. They had more than anyone else. They violated the law even more. Okay? But it says the holy seed has mingled itself. So what's this holy seed? What is this holy seed? This holy seed has to do with the divine gene. These are the generations of the heavens and the earth. You want to go to heaven, or you want to know what's in the stars, or you want to understand why life is what it is, because it just doesn't feel like this is all we're supposed to be doing, is going to work and paying bills until we die, because you are a part of that divine seed. You are a part of that divine seed. That's you. You understand? And it's been mingled. That's the seed of the woman that's spoken of in Genesis 3 verse 15. That's the seed that's being persecuted on this planet. Let's stick a pin there in Ezra and go to Revelation. Revelation chapter 12. Today we read from verse 12 to 17. Revelation 12, chapter 12, verse 12, all the way to 17, which is the end of the chapter. Therefore rejoice ye heavens, and ye that dwell in them. Why are they rejoicing? Because they kicked the devil out. Big party in heaven. Revelation 12. Verse 12. They rejoicing because they kicked the devil out. But they stopped long enough, they stopped partying long enough to say, woe to the inhabitants of the earth. Y'all gotta watch out because they coming to y'all. And of the sea, because these are reptilians. They live in the ocean. For the devil is come down unto you, having great wrath, because he knoweth that he hath but a short time. This devil is angry. And when the dragon saw that he was cast into the earth, he persecuted who? The woman. Oh boy. Which brought forth the man child. Which seed is being persecuted? The woman's seed. Because everyone in here has the mitochondrial DNA of their mother. Their mother. Okay? And to the woman were given 2 wings of a great eagle, that she might fly into the wilderness, into her place where she is nourished for a time and times and half a time from the face of the serpent. So when you see Ma'at, she has wings. When you see Aset, she has wings. So you go and you read the story of Aset and understand why she has wings. Because when her husband, Asaru, is killed, she has to flee. She has to disappear. Because the Sethians, who again are these dynasties who became the Canaanites, okay, because they didn't start out as white people. That's why we can't get into the race game. And it's not about white people and black people. It's about the divine gene, or the woman seed, and the serpent seed, that's spoken of in Genesis 3 verse 15. You understand? They want to make it a race thing, but it's not a race thing. You understand? There's only one race. It's the human race. And it's genetic potency. Okay? You just take any genetics course, they'll laugh at you when you come in there talking about race. You don't talk race and genetics. It's genetic potency. Alright? But they didn't want you to understand the importance of melanin. And they've been studying melanin for over 100 years at the University of Michigan. Why didn't they tell you that? Huh? Come they didn't make that big announcement. Why have they been studying melanin for 100 years at the University of Michigan? Don't believe me? Go look it up. Go look up Dr. Pookrum. She studied there. Nubian Melaninite woman. You understand? Pookrum. I don't know if she's aiming. I mean, if she is, I don't know. Alright? But it goes on to say that, verse 15, and the serpent cast out of his mouth water as a flood after the woman, that he might cause her to be carried away of the flood. And the earth helped the woman, and the earth opened her mouth and swallowed up the flood, which the dragon cast out of his mouth. And the dragon was wroth with the woman. The dragon is mad with the woman. They don't like women. And went to make war with the remnant of her seed. This is the war we're in right now. The remnant of the woman's seed, which keep the commandments of God. Not just the remnant of the seed of the woman, but those who keep the commandment of God. And of the testimony of Yahshua Christ. What's the testimony of Yahshua Christ? The testimony of Yahshua Christ, or Jesus Christ, is pick up your own cross and follow me. That's the testimony. You got to go through what I went through, and you'll be greater than me. You believe on me, you have the power to become the sons and the daughters of the Most High Heavenly One. That's the testimony. That's what they don't want us to know. Because when we start to know that, we gain our identity. And see, when you have your identity, you can then gain access to your bank account again. Huh? You go in the bank, I have $1 million in here. Okay, can I see your ID? I don't have my ID. Someone stole it. Well, you better hope the person who stole your ID ain't using it to take the money out. Because that's what's going on. The problem is the currency that's in the bank account, they can't utilize it. Because you have to be saved by the blood. You You understand? So they walk around with some gold bars. The people don't have gold bars. You understand? So we have to be wise enough to understand what's going on, and why it's so important for us to regain our identity. And so those examples then should have made it clear that what we're talking about is scriptural and not philosophical or emotional. I read it again out of the original books of the Bible, where it says, Natara Yelohim, or God, has created you all into tribes and families in order that Tar Earth be filled with variations of your species, which help to maintain its balancement. So right now the world is out of balance because we're all being painted with the same brush. We're all being told that, for example, when you go to court, and we're fortunate in the Bahamas because the majority of the people in the Bahamas can be considered our peers. In America, they talk about a jury of your peers. We know more about American law than we do about our own law. But in any event, in our court system, race is not so much of a factor as much as class is. Okay? And unfortunately, those of what they would refer to as a higher class has the mentality of the Greco-Roman. So that's where the race comes in that regard. But the point I wanted to make is that when we look in the scriptures to further understand how your identity was stolen, because someone said, what are you talking about? I mean, how is that possible? How can someone steal your identity? Well, people, they have a whole company called LifeLock that protects you from identity theft. I remember the first time I saw the movie Identity Theft, starring Sandra Bullock. I was like, that can't happen. I was a little boy. I remember that movie years ago. I was a teenager, probably. I looked at that and I was like, that's crazy. That's crazy. It's not crazy anymore. Someone could literally be you in another part of the world, opening bank accounts and renting apartments and getting credit cards, and they acting as you when you get in the bill. And that's what's happening to us on a cultural and a spiritual level and a religious level, where people are impersonating us and they're destroying our true way of life, and it's offsetting the balance of the planet, and we're all suffering for it. And so in the book that I mentioned earlier called Identity Theft, there's a key question that is asked, and it may ruffle some feathers, but you know what, this is a day and time where feathers need to be ruffled, because we've always heard about how wise Solomon was and how important he was to God's plan. The question in Identity Theft on page 89 says, what events occurred which led to the Canaanite dynasties of Europa that we just talked about? What events occurred which led to the Canaanite dynasties of Europa that were the sons of Canaan working to tie their vine into the original pure and holy seed? Because this is what they did. They tied into the vine. They rewrote stories. They removed images. They put up images. They still create in your mind an image of God and an image of the devil, an image of good and an image of bad. So much so that if we look back at this case with Trayvon Martin, they actually used the defense that Trayvon Martin looked scary, that he was intimidating, that George Zimmerman had the right to feel the way that he felt. Really? Really? Jesus wore a hood too. Look at the pictures. And he carried a stick. How much? All right then. says there were many events which took place over the last 6,000 years, which the three sets of 12 invading dynasties engaged in towards tying their cursed seed into the vine of the original pure and holy seed. To understand what took place, all members of humanity which seek true faith must come to know and understand that the events which took place during the life of the tribal ruler known as Seti or Dawood, whose life was grafted and manipulated to become the biblical King David, because they cannot find King David. There's no real King David. You realize that? This ain't what the Holy Qubtic Church saying. This is what the archaeologists who live in the Holy Land, who are Jews, are saying. They cannot find a King David, and they can't find a kingdom. That's what they saying. That's what we're getting at right now. The tribal ruler, Seti, Dawood, as a ruler over the unified three groups of 12 tribes of that time, was very aware of how the genealogical families came about. So much so that on the walls of the Holy of Holies located within the Kanisa, or Qubtic Church, which was constructed during his rule, there were drawn and painted the stages and importance of the genetic families of humanity. So they literally have from dark to light, and in between, okay, on the walls of Seti. Yet Seti, Dawood, by way of the forces of seduction, which were activated when Bathsheba took a bath naked in 2 Samuel chapter 11, in order that he would see her and become sexually aroused. So this is what they still doing now. At one time ago, if you look at a white woman as a black man, you could be killed. Now they dangle them out in the front of us. So that when we become NBA stars and NFL stars and CEOs, one of the first things we want to tick off on the bucket list is a white woman. Because that's what we feel that we're supposed to have to show that we've made it. Alright? This is an abomination according to the scriptures. You understand? You don't have to believe me. You don't have to like what I'm saying. But just go read it from my mind. I can give you a bunch of verses to read. Right? This particular mixing of the holy seed was performed by Seti or Dawood in spite of all he knew. Much like many Nubian Melaninites or so-called blacks of this latter day come to violate the divine commandments concerning the weakening of the Nubian gene. Because remember we just said that God created humanity into tribes and families in order that the earth be filled with variations of your species to keep balancement. Okay? Wasps and bees don't do it. Sharks and whales don't do it. Parrots and hawks don't do it. We understand strength of gene when it comes to breeding dogs. Oh, we understand that. We understand strength of gene when we breeding horses. We get that. It's clear that. So this horse won the Triple Crown. So if you want to mate your horse with this horse, it's $500,000 a pop. That's how they roll. Okay? Because they understand the strength of the seed. So don't play crazy when it comes to us. This is called true eugenics. True eugenics. What is true eugenics? It's the reason why you're not attracted to stupid people. It's the reason why you have a term ugly. You know what ugly really is? Unbalanced. Unsymmetrical. That's all it really is. And you don't want to be with someone who's unbalanced, subconsciously. A person with a deformity is not attracted to you because their genes are not balanced. You may not know why you don't like the person, but that's just a fact. There's a balance that has to be kept. This is what it's talking about, the golden ratio and Fibonacci number, all that goes into pretty and ugly. But that balance is the center or the Qubtic, and that is the what's the word I want? The place, the reference point for each race. Or each race has its reference point for pretty and ugly. You understand? So when you start making a whole society based on the standards of one race, then you got a whole group of people. Ain't nobody pretty unless they look like the ruling class. That's just an example, right? So jumping back into Seti or Dawood, who became your David. So this particular mixing of the holy seed was performed by Seti, Dawood, in spite of all he knew. Much like many Nubian Melanites of this latter day came to violate the divine commandments concerning the weakening of the Nubian gene, which spoke concerning mixing the blessed and holy seed of An-Re with the cursed and diseased seed of Canaan. What disease? Leprosy. Leprosy. Later you go into syphilis and gonorrhea and all those things too, because those diseases come from animals. This is in their story. The Romans, where they come from? Remus and Romulus. The jackal. They have bestiality brothels coming up all over Germany now. You go pay to sleep with an animal. This was out there now. I couldn't make this up. I got the pictures with the dog tied down. I got the pictures. They tied the animal down and how they away with it. Yeah, that's just what we're dealing with. You understand? So it goes on to say, Seti, or Dawood, did take a wife named Bathsheba. That was of the ruling families of the Hittite dynasty of Canaan. She was a Hittite, she was a Canaanite, whose land, present day, is Palestine or Israeli, fell under his rulership, and the result of his copulating with the daughter of the dynasties of Canaan produced a mixed son, called Ramos, or Solomon. Solomon. Okay? Now, in time, as this son, Ramos or Solomon, grew, he did, through the direct influence and manipulation of his Hittite mother Bathsheba, come to control his father's kingdom, even though his older brother, Neb-Chasset-Nebhut, who is known as Adonijah or Adoniah, who is the Nubian Melanite Adonijah, the elder son of the tribal ruler Seti Dawood, by his Nubian wife Haggith, was mentally and spiritually qualified, still alive and being of the unmixed pure seed, was entitled to rule over his people. So Solomon and his mother conspired and took over the kingdom, where Adonijah was supposed to take over the kingdom. But Adonijah was going to set things right. Adonijah was not going to allow the same foolishness that was going on with David to continue. And that's what Solomon and them was afraid of, because they were a mixed seed. Was he going to destroy them? No. But he was going to put them in their place. Nature already put you in your place. So don't get mad when they say put you in your place. Everyone have a place. Understand? And so, even though Adonijah was fit for the job, it was stolen from him by Solomon. And you can read that story. I don't have time to read it today. In 1 Kings, you read even the first 3 chapters. You'll see what's going on. Okay? So the identity theft then happened in that way. Now this is alarming to some people, because there are institutions that base themselves off of Solomon's temple. Cannot be found. But guess what? They have the temple of Ramesses. They say Ramesses III. Or as we say Ramesses II, or Ramos, who becomes Solomon. Oh, I did send it to you. Yeah. It looked just like Solomon's temple. You can find it on Google Earth. I showed you off the church. I have it here. I'm saying it to say that they stole the identity of Seti, of Ramos or Ramses, and created a whole story so that they could put themselves or prop themselves up as this seed that was deserving of the original covenants. It goes on to say, as such, all did not go well between these two brothers, talking about Adonijah and Solomon. Wherefore a rivalry did develop whereby Adonijah and those who held faithfully to the original Atonist teachings were pushed out. As you see in 1 Kings chapter 2, Solomon started killing off the priesthood. Okay, so that was really an indication of how they dealt with our people originally. They couldn't find themselves in the original scriptures, so they had to move those who knew the scriptures, rewrite it, and then beat everyone else who didn't want to believe them. Alright? So what they teaching you to be, they didn't convince you to be that by being that. You should be a Christian, you should love, you should turn the other cheek. That means somebody's slopping, eh? Alright. So, it goes on to say that these original seed, the people of the original seed, eventually some of them returned to Levi city, directly across from the Nile, from Armana, and even later settled in the land of Malawi, which is the genetic waters of the original Levites amongst their brethren. So there's the original Levites. Furthermore, as the family of Seti, Dawood split, two kingdoms did spring forth out of these two sons, Neb, Chasset, Nebhut or Adonijah, and Ramos, Solomon, and the two respective priesthoods which supported each of them. So you had a priesthood following Adonijah, and you had a priesthood following Solomon. When David was on his deathbed, the priest who was with Adonijah, they was partying, like, okay, Daddy about to roll out, we about to run this. And they started partying too soon.
Yeah.
They should have made sure things was in order and then party. But they weren't necessarily partying, they were planning, they were like, look, this is what needs to happen.
That's part of it, right? Right? When they take both
And we'll talk about it. Right? And so the names of these two different priesthoods that formed out of Solomon and Adonijah, the two different priests which survived out of the line of these two brothers were the original, or two different priesthoods which survived out of the line of these two brothers were the original Zosem, called the Lawi priesthood, and the priesthood of Yahuda. In time, the Jebusite Jew formulated two priesthoods in an attempt to rival the Atonists. So everything that we've done for ourselves to establish our identity, the Jebusite Jew, the Canaanites, come and steal the identity of it. And then tell us we don't have a story. You understand? Eventually those of the Levites, called Leviathans by the original Holy Qubtic Church, did take the teachings of the original Zosem or the Lawi priesthood, which Ramos or Solomon was educated under, and through cultural diffusion and misinterpretation did create their own mongrelized doctrine, which held one key difference, which was and is that members of humanity had to go through them and their man-made opinions found in the Old Testament and New Testament through people such as Paul and many so-called modern preachers today. So you're still trying to go through other than self and kind to receive salvation. And it's not going to happen. The laws were not built for you. The Bible as we hold it today was not written for you. This is why we have to go into it and extract the portions that the Most High intended for us and put down the portions that were not intended for us. That's why we say read the Bible. Read it. When you start reading it, you will see the differences. Because truth will always verify truth. Always. Simple formula. God is not a God of confusion. What came to be the difference between the original Zosem, the Lawi priesthood, and the doctrinal teachings of both the Levite priesthood and the Judahite priesthood? In order to properly answer this question from the scriptural perspective, we must closely examine John chapter 10, verse 33, as it explains that the Jews answered him, saying, For a good work we stone thee not, but for blasphemy, and because that thou being a man makest thyself a God. They never wanted you to see yourself in the image and after the likeness of God. Because that's what Yahshua or Jesus was telling the so-called Jews. He was like, no, we made an image and likeness of God, so we God. But we children of the Most High. We ain't getting egotistical with it. We will die like men. As it talks about in Psalm 82. Thus it should be made clear for all who seek true faith and those that have embraced true faith that the original Zosem or Lawi priesthood and their brethren, the priesthood of Yahudah, of which the Messiah, Yahshua Karat, was genetically born, is that they teach that all members of humanity have the ability to become gods and heirs to the throne of rulership. All members. It didn't just say black people. All members. That's what the book of Revelation chapter 7 talks about too. But all members of humanity have to come through those original 12 tribes. That's the way it's designed. Because the 12 gates to heaven represent one of those 12 tribes. Each one of the gates represents the 12 tribes. So if you want to get to heaven, you got to come through the original 12 tribes of the scriptures. That's the scripture. We didn't write it that way. That's the way we received it. That's the way we're giving it to you. You understand? Meanwhile, the Canaanite priesthoods, namely those who stole and misused the names Levitical priesthood and the Judaic priesthood, each held distinctly different views. These different views are such that the so-called Europeanized Levitical priesthood of today falsely promotes them to be the sons of Aaron without disclosing the realities of which Aaron they speak. Identity theft again. You understand? What is the difference between the Tamarian prophet Aharon and the Greek priest Aaron? Let it be made clear to all who read this parchment and those like it, that in accordance with the teachings of the Holy Qubtic Church, which does protect and promote atonism, which does protect and promote atonism, the Tamarian or ancient African Aaron was none other than the Grand Master Architect of the Kanisa at Karnak, namely Aharon, known as Nini or Nina. Now if you go into the Strong's Concordance and look up the word Aaron, you're going to find Aharon. Okay? So it ain't something we just saying. Nini, known also as Nina, was a student of the tribal ruler Amenhotep I, leader of the tribe of Issa Sokar, or those sent forth as a silent voice which unites all for the sake of protecting the Most High's children, all of whom are known as the children of the Nile heaven, a land called Ijtawi, which would eventually be called Fayum, where a great labyrinth was constructed in which the Qubtic rite of pilgrimage was received and performed by all adherents of the atonist way. Alright? Jumping down now so we understand who this Greek priest Aaron was. The Greek priest Aaron was the priest of the Leviathans, responsible for making the molten calves as gods, which the Leviathans, later called Levants, did worship. Thus it was a group of gods called Olympians, which the European priest Aaron was promoting, namely Moloch, Europa, the Canaanite bull god of fire. So Aharon and Aaron are not the same. Israeli and Israelite is not the same. Ishmaeli and Ishmaelite is not the same. We could go on and on and on about how this identity theft has created or put a complex in us as a people whereby we have an inferiority complex to the point where we don't want to stand up and build our own systems. That's why last week we had to talk about the fact that we as a country are still independent and aligning ourselves with the beast, but then we expecting for the kingdom of God to manifest out of the Bahamas. It's not going to happen that way. It's not going to happen that way. You understand? So in order to defend yourself, you have to know yourself. So that's the first step for all of us as a people, is to get to know who you are. Because to get to know who you are is to get to know who God is. Because God made you in its image and after his likeness. Male and female created he them and called them Adam. So that's a lie of this Adam and Eve story that they've been telling us. It doesn't even make sense, because they were both called Adam, which means the tribe was called Adam or Atum. Their name was Zakar and Necheba. You see that in the book of Genesis chapter 5 under male and female. Look it up in the Strongs. We ain't making this up. Under the word male is Zakar. Under the name female is Necheba. That's their name. So who's trying to fool you? It's the same devil that was sent down, who was persecuting the woman's seed. Those who hold the commandments, those who hold the 9 Qubtic rights, the laws, the precepts of the Most High Heavenly One on their right. But you are protected. I'm not saying this to make you afraid. When you get to know who you are, then the forces of nature work with you. The forces of nature that all have to bow down to. Hurricanes, tornadoes, volcanoes, I don't care how sophisticated this society or this world becomes. When the natural disasters come, they got to shut it down and let God work. And that's what's going to happen with us. And it's happening now as we end in the book of Psalm, chapter 18. Verses 37 to 50. Right? Remember we said David was ruling over the Canaanites. Right? Okay. I have pursued mine enemies. The word pursue there, radaf, to run after. We didn't wait for God to do it. We went and looked into the scriptures ourselves and showed you who you ain't supposed to mix your seed with. Amen? I have pursued my enemies and have overtaken them. Okay? I reached them. We caught up with the overstanding of what they were doing to us in the scriptures. They were switching words around, switching people around, switching stories around, but now we figured it out. You understand? I have pursued mine enemies and overtaken them, neither did I turn again till they were consumed. I have wounded them, that they were not able to rise. They are fallen under my feet. For thou hast girded me with strength unto the battle. Thou hast subdued under me those that rose up against me. Thou hast also given me the necks of mine enemies, that I may destroy them that hate me. They cried, but there was none to save them, even unto the Lord, but he answered them not. Then did I beat them small as the dust before the wind. I did cast them out as the dirt in the streets. Thou hast delivered me from the strivings of the people, and thou hast made me the head of the heathen of a people whom I have not known shall serve me. This was the curse of Canaan. A servant of servants you should be. As soon as they hear of me, they shall obey me. The strangers shall submit themselves unto me. The strangers shall fade away and be afraid out of their close places. The Lord liveth and bless me with. The Lord liveth and blessed be my rock. And let the God of my salvation be exalted. It is God that avengeth me and subdueth the people under me. How does God avenge you? Well, God lives in you. God breathed the breath of life into man, and they became a living soul. You understand? So God avenges you from within. It's the strength It's the knowledge, it's the wisdom, it's the understanding from within that allows you to avenge your oppressors. Not sitting around waiting for something to fall out of the sky. We're being avenged today as this sermon is being spoken. People's hearts and minds are being opened to who they truly are. This is how we are avenged. He delivereth me. Psalm chapter 18, now verse 48. He delivereth me from mine enemies. Yea, thou liftest me up above those that rise up against me. Thou hast delivered me from the violent man. Therefore will I give thanks unto the Lord. Therefore will I give thanks unto thee, O Lord, among the heathen, and sing praises unto thy name. Great deliverance giveth he to his king. Great deliverance. What's the word deliverance? The word deliverance is Yeshua. Great salvation giveth he to his king, and showeth mercy to his anointed, to David, or Dawood, Seti, and to his seed forevermore. The original seed, the seed of the woman. Take your identity back. Defend it. You say you love Jesus, then his color should matter. Just like your color matters now. Just like your parents' color matter now. If I put up a picture of a white man and say, that's Sir Lyndon O'Pinlan, would it matter? Huh? Talk to me. Would it matter? Yeah. Of course it can matter. So don't tell me it don't matter when it comes to Jesus. Don't tell me it don't matter when it comes to our great ancestors. Because if they put up a white picture of Finland, you're going to riot. Yeah. You understand? So don't talk no foolishness around here. So, self-defense, standing our ground against identity theft. You want to encourage all of those who want to stand their ground to find their way to the Holy Qubtic Church. Yesterday's verdict of Trayvon Martin was a global verdict. That's why the world had to see it, even though it was in Florida. So, for those of you who find that disturbing or find that confusing, there's not much we can do for you. We can't save everyone. But for those of you who understand what we're talking about, we ask that you join us in taking our identity back and putting the enemy under our feet. Not necessarily in a physical way. We're not asking anybody to get violent. We will protect ourselves if we have to. But the point is, we've caught up with the lies now. And now we're destroying them and taking back our identity. With that we say, Amun, 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 and Namaste.
You have been listening to the True Light Fellowship Hour, brought to you by the Qubtic Church of the Black Messiah, Journey Home Group International, located Meadow Street, Bain Town, and led in the Bahamas by Pastor Cleveland W. Eneas III. If this message has been a blessing for you today, and you feel it in your heart to assist us in bringing forth this weekly message by way of advertising or otherwise, or you wish a copy of this message, we ask that you please contact us at 242-426-1148 or email us at qubticrevealer@gmail.com. That's QUBTIC revealer@gmail.com, or on Facebook, the Qubtic Church of the Black Messiah, Journey Home Group International, Bahamas Branch. We bow to the divinity in you all by saying Namaste.
Eluti mingi ngana kukukateo Ukulu Yabikamwa Yonde winda ya bumu inanga